Welcome. As you can see, we have another video with the Norns. This time it's another version of Awake and it's called Passersby. This one differs from some of the other ones that we've been looking at because it's got much more of a West Coast sort of slant to it. So it's got a low pass gate, you've got wave shaping between sine wave to triangle waves. You've got LFOs in there that can control the modulation between all of these parameters. So it's really interesting in that respect. And but we pretty much have the same sort of interface, and I'm just going to run you through that. So what we have with Norns is basically dual step sequencer. You've got the upper sequencer, which are the notes that we hear, and the lower sequencer essentially transposes the upper sequencer. On this page, the step page, we can do a number of things. We have these keys, K1, K2, and K3. So pressing K2 will address which sequencer, and K3 will randomize the values. So at the moment, because we can see, I don't know if you can see that, but just that lower sort of paddle is highlighted. That means we're on step sequencer 2, the lower sequencer. So as you can see, some of the values start to move around. So to swap to the upper sequencer, we press K2, and now we can do exactly the same thing here. Turning the encoder, we get to the loop function. So for here, the encoders 2 and 3 here each control a step sequencer length, the number of steps. So encoder 2 controls the length of the upper sequencer, and encoder 3 controls the lower one. So this is 1 at the top, 2 at the bottom. This is 2 and 2. 3, 2. So there's a lot of value in sort of having values that are not equal, that you explore unequal divisions in terms of step lengths. 4 and 4. So essentially it's just repeating the same value. When we do 5 and 4, we come to somewhere interesting. At least to me, it's interesting. Turning the encoder again, we get the sound. So here, encoder 2 will alter the peak. So only certain notes are coming through, and the higher notes are very much very much rolled off. And under option, we can change tempo, we can change the bass key. So encoder 3 can transpose it up. I've chosen to do G today because that sort of felt right with some of the sounds that were being used. At the top, the first things you encounter, I tend to ignore most of these, but you can see sort of inputs and outputs that are available to you for if you have any of their other modules. And we see things like MIDI clock out, so you can say yes if that's what you want to do. We're using it standalone at the moment. The output can be audio, just MIDI. As you can see, there's audio plus MIDI. So I use that one with Ableton because I can bring the audio in as an external instrument and then also capture the MIDI, and then have things like operator and various other things kind of working along with it. Oops, sorry. For the time being, we'll just use audio. Set MIDI parameters and so on. Step length, we've already sort of, you can make it, that's a nice sound. There's some nice stuff inside this, you know. Things like note length, scale mode. At the moment I've got it in the minor pentatonic. It says major. There are quite a lot of scales to kind of go through. So now I've fancied that. Change the the bass note, the root. You can also have probabilities as well from hardly anything playing. You might want to explore having just quite high probability of the step playing, like play around somewhere within the 90s, so that there will be some holes within your pattern, but most of the time you'll hear most of the notes coming out most of the time. There's a glide function here, which you can hear. It's very nice, even at low values, because if you put it quite high, it's completely slewed, right? The wave shaping. So this is the interesting part, really. You can hear that coming in, bouncing to a triangle, and then from triangle to square, and from square to saw. Lovely sound. And you can control this using the inbuilt LFO, so we'll look at that in a minute. You've also got a wave folder. Let's change the wave up top. There's quite a lot of stuff to be doing there. We've also got FM, because it's got this West Coast slant to it. We also have FM, both for high and low. So these are currently set at the value that they are within the application. But what you'll need to do is actually bring up the amount of FM. You can hear it now. So that's the low FM, and here's the high. You get a slightly more glassy texture. Let's bring the low in. And again, increasing the low, reducing it, bringing up the high. You can hear it bending the pitch. Bring the low. And go for complete FM. So lots of interesting things to be had there. Let's take that out. So you have a switchable envelope here. You can have the low pass gate, or you can have a more sustained type envelope. So you can see the low pass gate doesn't have any attack. Again, we can adjust the peak. which we saw on the sound page. Decay, which we also saw. That can be quite tight, right? Let's have it about there. Amplitude, reverb mix, again, I'm in mono, sorry. So I've not put it in stereo, so I won't give you the reverb mix. LFO shapes, triangle, ramp, square, random, enough. LFO frequency, and then here you can assign the LFO to a parameter, as you can hear there, right? So we might put it into wave shape. Let's say it's 100% that, but we keep it on a very low modulation rate. Even with only accessing a single parameter at a time in this kind of manual fashion, you can still come up with a lot of really interesting tones, sounds. And I suppose what's also interesting here is because the sequence continues to run, you hear different sorts of effects, different kinds of dynamics being applied to particular notes when they coincide. You have drift. You can hear it moving around. It takes a while to kind of get in there. Let's whack the LFO up. Back to a slow modulation. Brilliant. And then of course there's the randomize function if you want to use that. We have control over the delay parameter. So delay, amplitude and so on. The rate, the amount of feedback, so we can make it a bit of a delay soup if you wanted to do that. You can also pan. And then of course we're back to the same sort of familiar sequence. This is for the upper sequencer. So you can see it's a length of 8, so we can make it a length of 5. And sequencer 2 is below, so let's make that a of 2. 5 and 2. And then of course we're back up to here to sort of make some changes because our sound has changed and we might want to kind of go with it. Let's try the low Maybe that's a bit too much. It's kind of really nice when it just pokes through and then you let the LFO do the rest. Let's start the wave. That was quite a lot. Let's change the wave shape. So a ramp. You can feel the ramp shape with the sudden drop off when it gets to the cliff edge. As a square, on off. Oh, sorry. And then random. Let's bring those down. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed that. That is Awake by Norns, or it's Passersby is its title. You can load it in from the Maiden interface, and I'd recommend it. It gives you more of a West Coast slant to using the synthesis engine, and will result in a lot of really great ideas. Have fun. Till next time, remember to like and subscribe.